So we have a sleeper escape to a wrist lock, and it's similar enough to something I've posted elsewhere at another time from another one of these professional wrestling sequences. There's always cool opportunities when you escape from this guillotine, or I'm sorry, this headlock grip. And it shows up in a lot of self-defense curriculums and Japanese jiu-jitsu curriculums. There's usually some sort of follow-up, like doing a seonagi shoulder throw or something along those lines. In one of the old Gracie jiu-jitsu curriculums, coming out of this, you would go to a hammer lock from behind. And I always love that because the hammer lock is not something that they really train in any other context sportively in BJJ these days. It's not something that you ever see. Some people go down a rabbit hole and specialize in it because they realize how many other people forget it exists. But what I don't see that often is this wrist manipulation here. But it's a very strong 2-on-1 grip. And here he's just using it for theatrical rope rappelling. And that's funny. It's cool. It's entertaining in a professional wrestling context, whatever. But could he, like, just look at the force with which he's wrenching the shoulder by way of that strong 2-on-1 grip. It's not a flowy, graceful Aikido wrist lock grip. That's something that in a realistic bounce or jitsu kind of context, you could rip the guy's shoulder right out of socket if you continue that rotation. So that's one of my favorite ways to bridge the gap between Aikido, which is fantasy, and I mean that respectfully to a degree because, like, I think the founder of Aikido literally on purpose meant to make the things not effective as a martial art because he was a pacifist, and that's a whole different video for another day. But here, this is putting the violence back into something like that, saying, nah, I'm going to grip with actual applied strength and wrench the shoulder. And if he didn't end this little bit of the narrative with the rope rappelling, that could have just as easily been torquing someone's shoulder, ripping all the connective tissue, and giving him a bad shoulder injury. I 100% believe that. What people will sometimes do to voluntarily escape that tension is they will voluntarily roll themselves, right? And that's ironically enough where we get full circle with some of the Aikido flippy floppy demonstration shit. But if you were to do an escape quickly enough and you wrench the shoulder quickly enough, they're not going to flippy floppy roll. They're just going to get a wrenched shoulder, and you may even kind of tear their labrum. You can put a lot, like anytime you see this corkscrew dynamic, that's one of the simple machines of physics, right? A screw or a corkscrew. And the shoulder being designed the way it is, its strength is its mobility. It can go in so many different directions and do so many different things. But when it gets taken beyond its mobility limits, oh boy, is it bad. So that's why I think this is interesting and potentially dangerous. And it's played for entertainment and laughs here, but I think it's worth planting a little seed for anyone who wants to do some of the self-defense curriculum stuff. You suddenly have the option of, rather than dovetailing it around into a hammer lock from behind the guy, maybe you're just ripping his shoulder out of socket like a chimpanzee.